Hi, my name is Roger Bruce. I'm the representative from District 61, and welcome to this week's edition of Under the Gold Dome. As we told you early on, from time to time, we were going to have some of the millennials, as they call themselves, on the program with us so that we could talk about things and get their perspective on things that are happening in the state and throughout the state. So without further ado, why don't we allow you to introduce yourselves and tell us the school that you attend and anything else that you'd like briefly.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Rheddick. I attend classes at Atlanta Metropolitan in the city of Atlanta, and I represent the millennial perspective.
Hello, my name is Askhari. I am a junior early childhood education major and international studies minor from Selma, Alabama, and I attend Spelman College.
Spelman, okay.
How are you doing? My name is Brighton Stokes. I attend Georgia State University, and I'm here with the Millennial Perspective also.
All right. And also, we have with us one of my colleagues in the General Assembly.
Hello, Derrick Jackson. And no, I'm not a millennial, and I represent District 64, which is South Fulton and Fayette counties.
And today we have some interesting topics, and I think it really touches all of us. We tease you guys a lot, you know, but that's part of it. You know, we've earned the right to tease you because we've gone through a lot of stuff. So, but some of the issues that we're talking about are very serious, and we realize that as we do things in the General Assembly, a lot of this, you know, is going to affect you probably more so than us because just simply because of our age, and the fact that, you know, we are leaving things that you're going to have to deal with. One of these issues that came up, you know, and it's not just here in Georgia, but it's all over the place. It's about immigration, and I'm sure that all of you have been paying attention to the news and wanting to send people back to, you know, to other countries and all kinds of craziness. But I really would like to get your perspective on how this is impacting you guys. So whoever wants to go first.
So the Senate Resolution 675, I think, kind of uncovers the dissembled, institutionalized xenophobia in not just
Now,
Georgia.
what was that word again?
Xenophobia.
Xenophobia.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Did you know
a
that?
hatred of people of other ethnicities and races, and especially from in an international context. And I think, well, I said that to say that that bill, you know, all of the things, oh, we don't like the assumption, oh, we don't, we care about everybody. We want everybody to be able to come to the United States. That bill erases all of that. Like, it shows everything. It shows that we have some issues with people of other backgrounds, and that we can't appreciate them for who they are, but not only for who they are, but more so, we have to. We want them to conform to our language and the way that we use English, and I think that that's just very wrong. It excludes so many people from all of the opportunities and resources that we so offer in America, and especially in Georgia, because this bill is for the state of Georgia.
Okay.
Well, I completely agree with that. It disrupts sort of the spirit that we as, you know, minorities sort of represent and hold in the country. When we start to pick apart like each aspect of our ethnicities, most important, you know, sources of communication and ways to learn, if anything, we're cutting ourselves and undercutting the value that put us in the state that we're in, as far as, you know, being a world powerhouse, where we're moving backwards in time, but also in legislation, in the way that we should hold our, you know, our citizens more endearing, in the way that they sort of, you know, speak to each other and talk to each other. If we at least address the way that we should be sort of allowing, you know, different parts of the population to communicate the way that they should be, then we'll at least be improving ourselves.
Brandon, do you have something you wanted to say too?
I do.
If we are a country that promotes diversity and democracy, why make it difficult for minorities to experience something that we so dearly promote?
Mm-hmm.
America was established on diversity and democracy. So if we're making it hard for minorities, people from different countries to participate in the simple thing of democracy, such as voting, are we truly contradicting ourselves? Are we fooling ourselves to say that we're promoting diversity and democracy when we're cutting different people out of our society that make it diverse?
Mm-hmm. And you're kind of mixing subjects in here, and that's okay. Because immigration, in terms of us, of the country deciding we're going to send certain people back over to wherever they came here from, seemed like that would send a whole lot of people if they really follow that to the letter. You know, and it's interesting because we look at the, you know, the occupants in the White House right now. You know, they're not from here. A couple of them, you know, and you know, so is the standard different, you know, at that level versus this one? Did you want to chime in on this?
I think you touched on a couple of good points. But I'm curious, when you hear the word immigration, that's one thing. But what about illegal aliens? How does that term resonate with the millennials?
Well, I feel like it's an unfair tag on people that are just trying to, I would say, better their life by going to a different country, because usually if you look at these countries such as the Middle East, these countries down in South America, these countries are ruled by dictatorship and people are dying. So what choice do they have but to sit and suffer or find a better escape route? And if the United States are promoting equality and democracy and everything I just listed, why not go to a place there and try to at least seek citizenship? I mean, when you first arrive, that's what you're going to be called, illegal alien. Why not be a person seeking asylum?
And I think some people, you know, would prefer that, you know, what you just said, no doubt about it. The, you know, you have this other issue with what has been now called the dreamers, where people who were brought over here by their parents, and they really didn't have a say in it one way or the other, but this is all they know. This is the only country that they know. How are you guys feeling about the idea of people being sent back?
So as a future educator, I stand with DACA because of the simple fact that these, as you said, they came over as minors, and I feel like they deserve a right to education, just as President Barack Obama let out for them. They should be able to continue to receive the benefits of that. And to respond to your question about how I feel about the word illegal aliens, it really disrupts my spirit because of the simple fact that the white supremacists that came over here when this was a country of Native Americans, they sought to come here to save people and to look for a better life. So that was one of the foundational principles of why they came to North America, and for them to exclude people from other countries really just, it's mind-boggling to me, because just as they sought a new opportunity, they should see the value in other people wanting to seek new opportunities.
You know, let me ask you something, because part of this is economic.
That's correct.
Okay, and you know, whether we like it or not, and I personally don't like it, but whether we like it or not, there are certain jobs that people just not going to do. Right. And you have other people who are willing to do them. So why not, how do you feel about the thought that, you know, we have all of these opportunities, you have people who live here who don't want to take advantage of it, but at the same time we want to deny those opportunities to people who are willing to do it?
Yeah. No, and I think you touched on something, Representative Bruce, because when you think about, for the state of Georgia, 70,000 not illegal aliens, because I agree with you, that title disturbs me, but those 70,000 that can negatively impact Georgia, that equates to $1.6 billion in agriculture, farming, right? And so not many millennials want to get out there and deal with agriculture and farming.
Yeah, I'm trying to visualize you guys out
there.
Right.
So
I'm from Augusta.
And so those 70,000, they're the ones who are picking our peanuts and everything else that we grow right here in Georgia. And so what you're touching on, Representative Bruce, it is economics, because if we start to deport individuals that fit this category, and that's 70,000 in the state of Georgia, then who's going to replace them, right? Because that could significantly impact us economically, at least $1.6 billion.
But that also speaks to their argument that, you know, people are coming in the country, they're not contributing to the country, they're not doing it. That negates all of that.
That's correct.
They are contributing in many ways.
That's correct.
You know, to this. And I think they're just like everybody else. They're trying to make a better life for themselves and their families. And we should not be putting things in place to make it more difficult for people to be able to do that. That's my thought.
Especially since they're contributing.
And they are contributing. You know, this notion that they're not contributing, I think, is a false notion. And I think there's one that we should not perpetuate, you know, as we discuss this thing, because I can think of a lot of ways that people are contributing. And, you know, so that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Let's talk also about this new thing that's going on now across the country also, with regard to trying to interfere with your freedom of speech. You familiar with this, what happened in Florida?
Yes.
You want to talk about it?
Well, specifically, the protests that happened as a response to Milo Yiannopoulos' presentation that he was giving on one of the college's campuses, they basically prevented him from coming, virtually responded to his, right-wing agenda, and as a response, a bill is being passed to sort of, by the Republicans who have intentions to sort of deconstruct the methods of protesting on college campuses.
So are they basically, you know, trying to put a definition to the word, what was the heckling?
Right.
And I'm not sure how you define that, you know, but
loosely.
But it sounds like what they want to do is be able to pick and choose, you know, what type of methods people can use to communicate. I grew up with the civil rights movement, and I'm sure you did too, and I don't know of any significant change in history that did not come with some sort of a challenge or a protest of some sort, somebody saying, I don't go along with this. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, all of you are college students. How do you feel about the idea of not being able to express? I mean, in fact, almost the entire movement, you know, started on various college campuses, and now you're being told, you know, maybe you should not be allowed to express how you feel on a college campus. What's your thoughts on that? Well,
I mean, me personally, I guess the main issue is when those protests go awry, when things start to get out of hand and there are sprinkles of extremists in those protests, and they propagate a message that the rest of the protesters aren't sort of, you know, trying to get across. Usually on these college campuses, whenever these protests tend to happen, if anything, there will be peaceful protests, but the moment that they start to disrupt basic college life, that's when laws like these become more apparent, because it's a response to the way that college students are trying to express themselves.
So are you saying you support this?
No, I'm not saying that I support it at all.
Okay.
What I'm saying is protesters, or rather people who want to express an opinion, you need to find proper ways of doing it to stay off of the radar of these legislators that are attempting to...
What is considered proper?
What's considered proper? Not attempting to add distress to the rest of the college life around people that are trying to work and people that are trying to live. If you have a peaceful protest...
Brandon, chopping at the bit. Go for it.
You shouldn't be interrupting the days.
So I honestly know what you're trying to say and whatnot. It might not be coming out the right way, but I definitely get what you're trying to say. What you're trying to say is, if we're gonna protest, make sure you have a goal. Not just outside yelling obscenities at the walls and at people we see that are different from us. So if we're gonna march and we're gonna protest on the campus, make sure we have a goal. What are we trying to do? What are people looking at that we're trying to do? We don't want just people outside, people that don't look like us, just yelling, "What are you screaming for?" What are you screaming for? We need to show what we're trying to accomplish. So if we're not accomplishing nothing, of course we're gonna look like hecklers just outside yelling obscenities and whatnot, and it may come off as wrong or rude, but we got to face the fact.
I think we found a topic there.
Okay, so as a person who came from Selma, Alabama, where the civil rights movement was in full throttle, where the world has been changed, I am very, very frustrated at the idea that you all think, well, I value what you said. We do need to have a vision and goal in mind, right? We shouldn't be protesting for anything. But, and this is a huge but, if we consider our oppressors and the things that are oppressing us above what is oppressing us, if we consider their needs, we don't want to disrupt them over what we need, then we'll never change anything. We'll never change anything. Just as the civil rights leaders did in Selma, they had to fight. They had to say, we're going to fight long and hard. We're not going to just say, we're disrupting the whole entire, not just United States, but the whole entire world. The whole entire world caters to, well, I'm not going to say that. But what I am going to say is that racism runs rampant and it's institutionalized. It's not just,
I think we hit a spot with you.
So let me ask you this, because we are in Black History Month, right? And so, and I think you all three of you mentioned something extremely well, but I want to sort of pivot back to what Representative Bruce is really drilling in on, because when you start thinking about legislation that going to create either censorship or take something away from one category, in this sense, university students, right? So what are the boundaries? When you start thinking about when we put something in law that's taking something from you, what are your feelings about that? Because we're not just simply talking about protesting. We're talking about freedom of speech. We're talking about the First Amendment, right? So we're taking a right from you when you start talking about someone that's going to introduce some legislation to censor you at a game, at a protest. Anything could be under that definition. So I'm just wondering how you feel about when legislation is introduced to take something from you.
And I got a feeling that if you just don't yell, because you might be messing up the mic there as you yell. It's all right to be,
So you bring up a good point about boundaries. The boundaries come when somebody introduces something or somebody says something and I can't respond with my own opinion and how I feel, because then that limits me as a person, and we all have freedom of speech and we all have individual rights. So if I'm a citizen, I am guaranteed to the First Amendment, which is the freedom of speech. So if I'm not allowed to be different, am I allowed? So what does that mean? Am I conforming to you? Is this turning into a dictatorship? If this is supposed to be a country of democracy.
I agree with you. I'm concerned about that as well.
And just to rebuttal off of what she says, I totally agree. You're from Selma, Alabama, and I definitely understand how civil rights is very important for both of you gentlemen. And one thing is, though, my question is, now we have people, we have bloggers, we have radical people, and what I mean by radical is we have people just coming up with movements that are for good causes, but they need to seek out leadership from more experienced people, from the SNCC, from the SCLC, from people from the NAACP. We need people that seek experience, because you will become more effective if you actually learn and sit down and have a conversation. And that's the gap. It's a generational gap between younger people and older people, because we feel like older people don't know what they're doing, but these people have been in your shoes, and we understand.
I like this
the
kid.
passion.
I'm taking notes.
We understand the elderly people understand the passion. We see the zeal in you. We see you want to get out and do it, but sometimes you have to learn and you have to crawl before you get out and do something. When you just automatically get out and do something, it fails. And just like the Black Lives Matter movement, nobody's going to take that serious until you seek leadership experience from people that have actually rode the freedom buses down through the racist part of the South. So my whole thing is, I get what you're saying, but it's all about experience.
Don't push that button. Okay.
So what I want to ask you is, how old do you think Congressman John Lewis was when he was in Selma, Alabama, fighting for voting rights? That's one. Just think about that. Two, I absolutely agree. We do need to glean from our elders. They have the resources, they have the wisdom to lead us and guide us, but I don't think that we should just lean on them completely for all of the answers. It's our time to go out and make a difference. I think that we should definitely heed their instruction, but I don't know that we should just say, "Oh, they have all the answers." So they had their time. They were on the forefront when they were young, and we need to say, "Okay, we get it. We are going to follow in your footsteps. We're going to appreciate your legacy, and we're going to keep it moving." That's one. And two, I think that, and when you legalize or illegalize freedom of speech, you place parameters on not just one part of your life, but on it just spreads all over like a disease. So if they can control one thing that you can say or do, then they almost have control over all of the things you say and do. So in order to, I guess, minimize disruptive conflict that is not productive, college campuses should have some rules and guidelines for how they should go, but not in legislation, not in
not in the law.
Yeah, not in law.
You look like you were chomping at the bits too.
Oh no. I completely agree with that. That's particularly why I'm against that protest legislation, because it's trying to sort of use its overarching hand to influence all colleges as they are and as they exist. I guess my issue is it's that needless violent interaction that tends to happen when extremists get into those protests, and they're not even extremists for the cause. 9 times out of 10, they're just random roamers who see something going on and want to take advantage of it. That's what adds a different context to those protests that put it on the map for these legislators who have no idea what the actual argument is for those protesters.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and to some degree, I do understand. But the reality is that when we create laws down here, unfortunately, there are times when we have this thing that we deal with, that unintentional consequences that happen. And so you have to be careful what you put into legal terms and make it part of a charter or a constitution or whatever the case may be. I personally think that this country was able to grow and expand the way it has because of people's freedom to speak, their freedom to disagree. And there are laws in place already that govern when people take it beyond the discussion and turn it into violence. There are laws already on the books, already in place that say you can't burn down a building, that you can't, attack other people. All of that exists already. Right. So this legislation, as I see it, is not dealing with what you're talking about in terms of the violence on the campus. This is dealing with you not even being able to express how you feel, what your thoughts are, and that is of great concern to me. If the event, as I said, if it grows or expands or becomes something other than, a nonviolent communication of how you feel, there's laws on the books already to deal with that. I'm not sure that this law serves that purpose.
But as you well know, Representative Bruce, it is based on the framework of that legislation in Florida. You could be at a basketball game, right? And if they believe you're heckling, you could be excused. You could be thrown out of the game because it fits under the definition of that legislation.
That's the unintended consequence that we're talking
right.
about. I mean, because who wants to go to a basketball game and not be able to heckle the other team?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's part of
or the referee.
Yeah, that's part of what's going on. Okay, we've covered quite a bit today, we talked about immigration. We talked about the English only. I don't know that we hit that as hard as we wanted to. Did you want to say something else about that?
Because when you think about English only, it's really in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, when we go into our banks, it's not just English, but it's also in Spanish. And there's a reason why, right? Because the United States is one big melting pot. And the one question I did want to ask is how other individuals are treated in response when they are communicating. And let me give you a perfect example. So when Eminem spoke out against the person that's occupying the White House right now, the individual, the president didn't say anything to Eminem. But when Jay-Z, that was speaking factual information as it relates to unemployment with regards to African Americans, then he came out and attacked Jay-Z. And so it's not just English only, it is also who is speaking and who is responding, and that's where the subjectivity comes in at when you start talking about communicating.
Okay. Okay, we're going to kind of wrap it up, but before we do, I'm going to give each of you a chance to make sure that you get to say whatever it is that you wanted to say that we didn't give you a chance to say yet.
Well,
I think y'all said a lot.
well, all I wanted to say was two things. I get what you're saying about the violence thing, about you being worried about the violence thing, but if you like, okay, never mind. But back to you, if you read Walking with the Wind, John Lewis' memoir, it talks about him actually talking with elderly people and an elderly person telling him, don't lose in sight of what you're trying to do. It's okay to receive wisdom, but don't forget what you're trying to do. And that's what I wasn't trying to do. I wasn't trying to make sure, like, let the elderly people take over control. Because back then in the civil rights movement, young people weren't trying to let the elderly people take over control. But it's good to get experience and wisdom. It's like growing up as a child. Would I think I just go around life thinking I know what I'm doing instead of asking my mom, what should I do? So, and it came back to me. The thing is, if we, like I said, in these protests, if we prepare, like back in, they were listening to John Lawson, learning about the nonviolent movement. If before we get out there and protest, let's hold forums, workshops of how to make effective protests, and just sending a text like, hey, everybody meet in the courtyard 5 p.m. We about to run down the street and yell obscenities and whatnot. Look crazy.
Exactly. All right, that's a good point, Brad.
So I was trained by Dr. Bernard Lafayette with Kingian nonviolent principles, and I think that if we can have those classes in schools, that would be very helpful, as both of you all were saying. And I wanted to reaffirm that I appreciate that you understand that we still have to do the work. I mean, we do want to heed the wisdom and the instruction of the elders. But when you say that we have to turn to the NAACP and the SNCC, SNCC, elders, for them to continue the legacy, it kind of slapped them in the face because they will want young people who did rely on elders, but they stood at the forefront.
We got to find a new word other than this elder thing. Huh?
I wasn't saying it like that.
Yeah, I know. I was reaffirming that you just said that, and I appreciate that.
Elder, old,
season.
I said experience.
We got to come up with something else here. Okay.
Okay, one more thing. I just wanted to say that I hope that this legislation is not passed because I do not want our college campuses to be governed and restricted in our freedom of speech. And lastly, Senate Resolution 675 really just kind of opened the door so you all can see how restricted and how exclusive the United States is when it's supposed to be a melting pot, as you said, and it just excludes people to the rights of democracy and opportunity that America is supposed to uplift.
Okay.
No, you're completely right. I agree. It's important that we deconstruct the supremacy that's consistent in our systems of government, and we protest and we start to achieve different methods and of course methods that acknowledge how to correctly get like an idea across, and we do all that we can to make our country a better place so that our kids won't wear the elders or wear the more, seasoned? Won't wear the more seasoned. We leave a world where they don't have to fight the way that we fought, but they still understand what we're trying to instill.
I would say, well, first off, Representative Bruce, thank you for giving them a platform. I think we need to give the millennials more of a platform, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to also hear what you have to say, because there was a time before we became seasoned, we were in your shoes. So I would just leave you with these two thoughts: engage and vote, right? Because when it become law, it's too late, right? It takes an act of Congress to change the law. But if you engage on the front end, like the three of you are, you're very passionate, very articulate. All these things is part of the engagement. Knowing who your representatives are, from the city council to the mayor to the county commissioner to the state level and beyond. And so that engagement encompasses everything. But the second and more importantly is the vote, right? That is the most treasured gift that we all have. I don't care if your net worth is $1 billion or $1. That one vote is equal. And so by you exercising your right, that puts all your energy, all your passion into the ballot box.
I want to thank all of you. This has been a very good experience for me. I have children your age, actually a little older than you, but and I listen to them, and we have these dialogues, and I hope that when you go home and you talk to your parents, that you talk to them in such a way that they understand where you are, but I also hope that you listen to them so that you understand, as you said, there's experience, you know, in the minds of all of these individuals that have gone through this. We've done it. We've experienced it. I've talked many times about, you know, the things that I had to go through in Virginia. You know, I went to high school in Virginia, and in the 60s, and that was a period of time when it really wasn't very friendly in the South. It's still not very friendly in some places, but it was really not friendly back there. You know, although the civil rights law had passed and we were able to supposedly go into any restaurant you wanted or any hotel you wanted, that was, the law said you could, but the spirit of those individuals said you couldn't. Right. And so even now, as we celebrate, as you indicated, Black History Month, it's hard for me to wrap my arms around the fact that all of our history can be absorbed in a month. We've contributed to this country in many, many, many ways, and you know, and they picked the shortest month at that. But anyway, but the reality is that we have all contributed. We've all worked together. We've all done things to make this country the country that it is, and I would hope that we would continue, you know, to work with each other. To make it a better place than it was, and that we won't let the current occupants in the White House, you know, deter us from the reality that everybody in America is not like that. Right. And that was evident in the vote. That's you know, right. What, 3 million more people That's voted right. against him.
That's correct.
You know, so it's you know, unfortunately our system of how we elect people, but it's not the spirit of this country. Right. And we should not allow ourselves to get caught up in the current rhetoric. And we need to work together with everybody. Amen. So again, I appreciate you guys coming. I look forward to working with you again and sharing with our public what's going on under the Gold Dome. All right? Thank you very much.
Well done.